Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Chad Amond, President and CEO of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, President of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce, Chad Amond. We are delighted to have two ladies on the show today from Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center that is located in New Alexandria. Barb Martin is the trustee and owner of the farm, and Macey Marks is a board member for the rescue center. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and we appreciate this opportunity to talk about the great work we're doing.
Well, very good.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Well, I think it's always best to start off with the background. You're both of your backgrounds. Where did you grow up? What got you interested in being part of a rescue center for Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Farm?
I actually grew up on this farm. This is my home farm, and when my parents owned it, it was a dairy farm, but we always had a horse or two. In fact, I got my first pony when I was age 4, and my dad and I would go riding, and he would have to tie my pony to his big red mare, or my pony would take off with me. I was so little I couldn't even control the ponies. So my whole life has been spent on this farm, and when we bought the farm from Dad upon his retirement, we made it into a horse farm. And then a couple years ago, the economy kind of tanked. We didn't have very many boarders. We were asked to take some rescue horses, and I was always, even as a kid, rescuing any animal that walked on that farm. It definitely had a home because I was going to save it no matter what it took to save. So that really was the origin of the rescue farm or the rescue center, and currently we are rescuing horses and cats. We have 12 horses right now, capacity for 14, and cats. Probably 2 weeks ago I gave my flea and tick treatments to my cats, and I gave 47 treatments to give you an idea of the number of cats we have.
47 cats. That's a lot of meows, right?
That's a lot of meows, a lot of food, a lot of vet bills, but
A lot of love.
a lot of love.
And cuddles.
Well, Macey, what's your background, and how did you get connected to the equine center?
Well, I'm from the area. I'm not from New Alexandria, but I'm from Harrison City, Penn Trafford area. Barb is actually my extended family. I just call her my aunt. I'm her niece because, like you said, you're from dairy. If you're, what do you say, family tree is a wreath?
Yeah.
That's pretty much how we are. I came to the farm ever since I was a little girl because I think we'll talk about it a little later, but they have events at the farm, and I used to go for Christmas and go for Pumpkin Fest and pick a pumpkin and things like that. And that was when I was little. When I turned 14 years old, I came to Barb and I said, would you teach me how to ride a horse? And she was gracious enough to let me ride her pony, and I started riding there and working there a little bit, and I just became more involved, and it's become a huge part of my life. And I love helping out, and it's just like my second home pretty much. And I've always loved animals, and I love horses now, and she kind of got me into it, and I'm real happy with being able to help her and everyone out at the farm on animals.
Well, Barb, I want to dig deeper into how did the Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center originate? I was on the website and I saw that there was a horse named Nick. Did he start it?
Nick was probably our first rescue. We were actually, my dad was still living then. We were looking for a new driving horse. My mom and dad were older at the time, and they could do carriage rides. They couldn't necessarily get up on a horse. So we were hunting a driving horse. So my husband, George, my mom, my dad, myself, we head to Uniontown to find this horse that's advertised in the paper. Well, it was pretty amazing what we found, because he was in a muddy corral. Thank goodness there was a good landscaper there that kept putting grass clippings in the corral for the horse. He was pretty skinny, pretty dirty, needed a lot of care. And the first time we walked away from him because the owner said that he didn't know how to drive. Well, that bothered me for about a week. So the next Saturday, we were back there with the truck and trailer, and we bought Nick and brought him home. Took weeks to get him recouped. We do have a quarantine stall in the barn, or quarantine shed in the farm that horse was placed in, as any debilitated horse is, until they recoup and they're safe to go with the other horses. So he was in that quarantine stall for probably close to 3 months. Started riding him, and he was such an intelligent horse. One day I just I thought, this horse knows way more than I do. Put the driving harness on him. We had this little training cart that my dad had built for my pony. Hooked him into that, and that was the beginning of his driving days. And my parents did weddings, regular carriage rides. We hauled that horse all around Westmoreland County and the surrounding county for different events.
Parades too, right?
Parades, weddings, we did it all with him. That horse lived on our farm till he was 43. The last summer of his life was a little difficult, and we would call the vet to have him put down. He was done at 43. Average age of horse is 25.
No
so
kidding.
that summer he was having a difficult summer, and we'd call the vet to have him put down because we couldn't do anything more for him. At that time, my mom was also in a nursing home, and she was not doing well, and the nursing home would call every time the vet was supposed to come, and we'd cancel the vet and run to the nursing home. She died September 18th. I still say Nick waited on her because we found him dead in the field on September 19th.
Wow.
So I think he was the one that was waiting on her, and he took her up those pearly steps to heaven, because she had told me a couple weeks before she could never go to heaven because she couldn't get up the steps. And I think Nick is how she got up those steps.
Wow, that's a fantastic story. Well, but for the listeners, how do you recoup a horse? I mean, what are some of the I guess the process that you do whenever you are trying to make sure that a horse is being taken care of?
Well, when the horses come in, I think Barb mentioned it, if they need some more veterinary attention or they're not fully recouped yet, they go in the quarantine barn, which just keeps them away from the other horses, say if they're not vaccinated or whatnot. When they're up there, they always get fresh water. We give them every day. They get hay, they get their oats. We're there to clean their stall. They have a field to go out in. So it's just like all the other horses, but they're just separated. They're there for however long they really need until they're ready to be introduced into the farm with all the rest of the horses. If you want to know more about how they are vaccinated and things, they get dewormed, they get their nutritional intake, we take care of their hooves, their dental work, the dentist will come, and everything else all the horses at the farm would get until they're really ready to be reacclimated. And when they are reacclimated, we'll take them out. Usually we try, there's a big field that have most of the herd in them. We'll take them out there and we'll put one horse out at a time to make sure they all get along. If it doesn't work out, we'll put them usually in another field with just one other horse, and then they'll kind of buddy up that way, and every horse kind of has a buddy that they like.
Friends, right?
Yeah, they all make friends, and then you see them out in the herd, this one with this horse, and they kind of make buddies and do things like that. So all the horses that have come have been pretty well acclimated, and everyone's found a buddy they like, and that's pretty much how it goes.
Well, you're obviously doing some great work. What did you say, 43 or 47 cats, and how many horses? 14, 12, and the 14 is the max. Sometimes things come down to the bottom line, ladies, and so how is the Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center funded? I know I can't imagine that you have a farm that grows money off of the trees, right?
I wish I did, because
Yeah,
I'd be
right.
fertilizing it. No, currently we're doing it via fundraisers. We are a 501c tax-deductible corporation, which has been a great asset and help to our organization. And donations. We do have a GoFundMe account. It is at gofundme.com/pleasureacres. The GoFundMe account can also be located on our Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/PA Equine Feline Rescue Center. And also, you can always mail a check to the farm. Our farm is located at 149 Hornock Drive, New Alexandria, Pennsylvania, 15670. The other thing that has really we've seen an increase in the last year is memorial contributions. When an animal lover dies, or some of our family members have died, they've listed actually in the obituary or asked their family members that donations be made to the rescue center in honor of that particular person. Fundraisers, we do a lot of things, from a fall pumpkin fest. Pumpkin Fest is open to the public the first weekend in October, and then you can have private parties afterwards. Macey, maybe you want to tell them about Pumpkin Fest and the specifics.
Sure. So for Pumpkin Fest, we decorate the whole barn up in Halloween type decor, and there's a pumpkin patch where there's pumpkins, so kids and families can come and you get a hayride up to the pumpkin patch, pick your pumpkin, and then they go down to the grove.
They start at the grove and end at
Yeah,
the grove.
and the grove is a covered pavilion that's also on the farm where there's food and people can have parties and things like that. So starting at the grove is where the festivities start, and you take the hayride around the farm, and it's really beautiful.
How many acres is the farm, approximately?
It's about 87 acres.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of acreage to go
Yeah.
around and see things. And with Pumpkin Fest, you can do, as Barb mentioned, a private party. So that would be any type of an organization. I think the Boy Scouts have come before, and the
Church groups,
Yeah.
Girl Scouts. Really, in some ways, we are trying to service the community as well, because there's a lot of little kids that have never petted a horse.
Oh, right.
I know during Pumpkin Fest, we have a group that comes, they've come probably the last 3 or 4 years, and there is a little girl that is blind that comes. And she used to come every year to see our horse Feathers. Feathers we acquired from the Humane Society. He was an abused horse. The result of that abuse was he was blind and deaf. We had him for 18 years under those conditions. He did remarkable for us. He taught us a lot, as well as we tried to teach him some things too. But this little girl would show up every year at Pumpkin Fest because she had to come see Feathers, because she understood what Feathers' disabilities were. She said, he's like me, I have to come see Feathers. And she was so disappointed because we did lose Feathers last summer. He had potentially developed a sinus tumor and could no longer breathe.
Barb, you talked about Nick, and the horse, Nick, and Feather, the horse. And describe to the listeners how you find the horses that come to the rescue center. I mean, they don't show up on their own, I'm imagining. But
No.
How do you find them?
Some of them, like Feathers, came from the Humane Society. We have another horse, Harvey, who came from Second Chance Equine. And we also have some volunteer surrenders. And those are mostly due to owners' changes in their lifestyle or their life experiences. It could be divorce, death of an owner, loss of a farm, something like that. The local vets have also identified some horses. We just got a pony, I think it was last fall. Blackie came to us, and we call him his daddy. His owner died. His son inherited him. However, his son traveled for work. So Blackie needed a home. So we did take Blackie in, and he's kind of the hit of the barn. He's a little bit spoiled. And there are a lot of days that I don't know who's saving who, because when he sticks that little head over the gate and he wants a hug, and he rests his head on your shoulders, and he's the cutest little thing, and gives you a hug, I sometimes really question who's rescuing who.
I think that's a good segue to go to a break. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. We're talking with Barb Martin and Macey Marks from Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Welcome back. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. I'm your host, Chad Amond, president of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce. On the show today are Barb Martin. Barb is a trustee and the owner of Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center, and Macey Marks, who is a board member of Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center. Ladies, before we went to break, we were talking about some of the great work that you're doing with rescuing horses and the cats, but there's more to just the Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center. There are also on the farm events that you host, correct? So let's talk about some of the events that you host. Maybe there's a Christmas event, correct?
Correct. We have Christmas Open House. It is the first weekend in December. It is open to the public. And then the rest of the month of December, if you want to schedule a private party, we can arrange for a private party. Christmas open house, I think, is probably one of the nicest events that we have. The barn is all decorated. There are Christmas trees everywhere. We must put up at least 10, 12 Christmas trees. In the museum, we have a horse-drawn carriage museum. All the carriages are decorated. Of course, you have to have Santa and you have to have Christmas dinner. But the kids can come and tour the barn and pet the horses. They get to sit on Santa's lap, and he usually has a gift for them, of course. And it's just, we have Christmas music playing. It's just a very homey situation, and it's amazing how the kids just reach out to those horses and the horses in return. Some of the cats will also hang around. I won't tell you that when you're having dinner that you might have like a jinxie cat that shows up begging or pumpkin cat that shows up and begs, because they are a little spoiled. The other thing we can do is we can schedule private parties. Right now we seem to have some requests for graduation parties. We do some weddings. There is what we call Covered Bridge Grove on the farm, and there is a covered bridge there that my dad built many years ago, and there's a big pavilion. So we do some weddings down there, graduation parties, family reunions, things of that nature. We also have a monthly dance down there at the pavilion. There is a dance floor and a stage, so we have monthly dances down there during the summer. And almost any event can include a barn tour, a tour of the farm museum, hayride, things of that nature.
So the museum, talk a little bit about the museum. I was on the website and I saw some pretty cool pictures of the museum. Tell the listeners a little bit about the museum.
Well, the museum was first started, in fact, I said earlier that our farm used to be a dairy farm. It used to actually be a cattle shed, and when George and I were cleaning out the farm when we bought the farm, I kept saying, don't throw this away and don't throw that away, and I want this and I want that. So we had to have a place to put all these things I wanted, which were mostly horse-drawn farm equipment. We have a horse-drawn corn planter. We have a potato digger, harrows. There's a sickle bar down there, all horse-drawn equipment that my dad had on the farm. We also have the first tractor that was on the farm. It is a John Deere, and it does still run. I've used it for some weddings. We actually had a wedding party that they wanted the whole party to go down to the Grove on a hay wagon, so I pulled the hay wagon with the John Deere. I believe it's a 1936 John Deere. And then we have a number of antique carriages. We have the Surrey with the fringe on the top. We have a buckboard wagon that my dad and I used to sell pumpkins off of. There's a 1920 courting carriage. And then we have two Meadowbrooks. They are newer, built by the Amish. So it's kind of nice. We have a bottle collection, and then, of course, some antique farm equipment. There's some milk cans from when we had the dairy farm and shipped milk to Penn Hills. We shipped it to Turner's in Penn Hills. And that was before the time of all the trucks and the modern technology that we have now. Well,
there's a lot going on. You obviously are very busy. And when we were talking in the break, you said that we're taping the show in early July. It was probably close to 100 degrees yesterday, and you did over 600 bales of hay. So you're working your tails off, but it's probably fun too, right? Because you guys have you said some spoiled cats, so you have cat daycare as well. Macey, talk a little bit about that cat daycare. I'm interested in that.
So kitty daycare, Barb kind of created that more recently. We didn't have it for a while, but along with, it kind of goes with when we acclimate the cats to the barn. So when we take in a cat that needs a home, it usually stays in a cage for about 2 weeks. Kind of like how horses are quarantined, but during this 2 week period when they're in the cage. They get their shots, they get vaccinated, they'll get spayed or neutered if they need it, and they stay in the cage to kind of get used to the horses walking through the barn, people, the high lifts running through, hearing the tractor, getting used to other cats and things, so that when we do take them out of the cage, they don't just run away. And most of the cats will stay on the barn because they aren't just barn cats as you would think. They run around and eat mice and things like that.
Well, what is the definition of a barn cat? I didn't grow up on a farm, so I think maybe the listeners need to know what is a barn cat. What's the new definition of a barn cat, I guess?
I think the old definition, people would think it's just a cat that free roams and does whatever it wants, but a barn cat, especially for the cats at the rescue center, they are treated like one of the family, and they have, they're always they always have food and water, and they get their flea and ticks, and they are just, I think sometimes some of them are treated, they get a lot more food than even my cat gets at her house, because I dump her a little food and she eats and goes on her way. Like they're treated very, very well, and I think Barb can even talk a little more about that.
I think historically people think of barn cats as no vet care, not fixed, no flea and tick drops, and they basically have to hunt for their food. I don't know that my cats know what a mouse or rat or something like that is, let alone eat it. Basically, if it doesn't come out of the cat food bag, they're probably not going to eat it. They get dry and canned cat food twice a day, as well as all their vet care. So somebody that recently was involved with 2 cat rescues said that we had taught her a whole new definition of a barn cat. And I know there are people that call about cats, and when they hear that the setting is a barn, I think they get a little panicked until we talk further. Unfortunately, I'm like every other cat shelter. There are times that I'm full and I can't take a cat. That doesn't mean I won't take your name and your phone number, and if life changes at the farm and I can take it, I will give you a call. Because it's a shame. People think of cats as disposable, even nowadays. They dump them anywhere, and it's just not fair to the animal. And really, the process we have at orienting them, I would say probably 85 to 90% of the cats that come to the barn stay on the farm premises after we let them out of the 2 weeks of daycare where they get oriented to the barn.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. I'm your host, Chad Amond, president of the Westmoreland County Chamber of Commerce. We have Barb Martin, who is the owner of Pleasure Acres Equine and Feline Rescue Center, and Macey Marks, who is a board member at the Rescue Center. Macey, I want to ask, what are some of the plans for the Rescue Center? Like, what if you look to the future for a couple of years? What do you expect for the future of the Rescue Center?
Well, we have some more goals that are coming sooner, and then we have some long-term goals as well. Coming up the soonest is the Dairy Agricultural Fair. We'll have a booth there. It's from July 15th through the 21st. And at that booth, people will be able to get more information about the barn, meet some of us, give us donations, learn about some of the things that maybe we didn't talk about today, things like that. Just try to get our name out there. Also, something in the long term, on the farm there is a farmhouse that Barb actually grew up in, and she's hoping to create this into a gift shop and used tack shop in the future, which all the benefits from that shop will benefit all the proceeds from that will benefit the rescue center, and to just continued support from the community. Even since I've been working there, I've noticed a lot of people from the New Alexandria area that Barb have known, old friends and family. People will come back year after year, and people are so supportive of everything. And even when we get new people to learn about the farm, everyone's just so willing to help out and want to be involved in things. And it's just very good to be able to, bring kids to the farms, let them see the horse, get involved with the animals. They learn a new way of life, sort of. And even more about that, some of the Barb already talked about that. Yeah, so that's kind of
okay. But what if we're talking about, like, we're getting towards the end of the show, but if we were talking about the cats and the horses and the great work that you're doing, what are your goals and the plans for the cats and the horses? What do you expect from them, and what is feeling good in your minds about the work that you're doing?
Well, the farm is an end-of-life sanctuary. That is for the horses. When we adopt them, they don't go anywhere else, because a lot of the older horses that are adopted, they because of their needs or maybe injuries they have had or disabilities, you can't ride them or use them for other things. So they come and live the end of their days at the farm, which is great because they are treated just like any other horse that would be given 100% attention, and they are be able to transition from whatever situation they were in to a comfortable situation where they can relax and just be happy for the rest of their lives.
Barb, what are you thinking that you want to make sure that all of the listeners, closing remarks, and what do you feel best about with the work you're doing at the rescue center?
I think what I'd like to clarify is the monetary donations are really the best way to help us. Reason being that, especially when you look at the rescue horses, their backgrounds are all different. They cannot have inconsistent grain, inconsistent hay, because every once in a while somebody will say, oh, I'll bring you a bag of corn. Well, that's just enough a change in diet to upset that horse that's maybe already unstable. So that's why I traditionally have asked for monetary donations, so that we can give the consistency we need for especially the horses. The cats, we have a little more leeway, but the monetary donations are key. The other thing that people ask me about is volunteer opportunities, and they're limited because you have a horse that's 1,000 pounds who's been through maybe a traumatic event or, just a change in environment. Maybe they grew up with a family. That horse has been a part of a family for 20, 22 years, and the family had a life-changing event where maybe they lost their farm. So after 22 years, you pick this horse up out of this family, you put them in a different barn, different farm, and different people taking care of them. And it's enough to spook them, make them scared. They need time to adjust. So volunteer opportunities are limited, but like last year for Christmas in December, we had a Girl Scout troop come out and help to decorate the barn. Those kind of things. Or we had a tack cleaning party this spring, and volunteers came and helped us clean tack. So there are some limited volunteer opportunities as well, but just as we are asking for the community support, we in turn will try to support the community by providing an educational environment to the young people that, like I said, maybe never had the opportunity to interact with a horse or a cat.
Barb Martin, Macey Marks, thank you very much for being on Westmoreland Community Connections. We appreciate the work that you're doing in Westmoreland County and beyond. If the listeners want to connect with Pleasure Acres, pleasureacres.wordpress.com, or you can find them on Facebook at PA Equine Feline Rescue Center. That's PA Equine Feline Rescue Center. Or give them a call at 724-668-2029. That's 724-668-2029. Thanks very much, ladies, for being on the show.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Chad.
You've been listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on Hometown Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Join us next week, same time, same place, for another edition of Westmoreland Community Connections. Thanks for listening, everyone.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.